Okay, let's just jump right into it. Picture an isolated ancestral home in Odisha, completely surrounded by dense, creeping woods. We're talking about a place where a bizarre, terrifying family ritual has been kept alive in the shadows for 85 years. So turn down the lights, grab a seat, because today's explainer is a genuine campfire story. It's this wild collision between modern skepticism and ancient, inescapable horror. We've got to start with this chilling warning. And no, this wasn't spoken by some movie villain. This was actually delivered by a possessed priest directly to a terrified family. The man on the receiving end, that was Rohit's father. And, well, he was about to learn the hard way that just because you ignore the past doesn't mean the past ignores you. The whole nightmare really hinges on one haunting question, right? What happens when a modern family ignores an 85-year-old supernatural pact? On one side, you have Rohit's father, a rational, highly educated retired Navy officer. He looks at ancient folklore and just sees harmless superstition. But on the other side, an unseen, totally unforgiving force that's basically governed his family's fate for almost a century. To really get a feel for the dread here, you have to picture the location. Rohit's ancestral village home isn't just in some quiet neighborhood. It's incredibly isolated near Athagadh, sitting all alone at the end of a 25-kilometer dirt road. And surrounding the property is a massive 31 biga forest. That's dozens of acres of just impenetrable woods. I mean, once you're out there, you are completely cut off from the rest of the world. And the rules for this 85-year-old family ritual, they were bizarrely, almost terrifyingly exact. Every single son in the family was absolutely required to do it. Rule 1, you have to be married for exactly 17 years. Rule 2, you must return to the village temple. And the third, most disturbing detail, the wife must be exactly 6 months pregnant. So, when Rohit's father hit that 17-year mark, he flat out refused to play along. I mean, he's a Navy veteran, he already has 2 kids. Despite all these desperate phone calls and relatives literally begging him not to back out, he just brushed the whole thing off as absolute nonsense. But, the dread starts building like clockwork. Just a month and a half after he refused the ritual, Rohit's grandfather suddenly passes away. So 17 relatives gather at this isolated house for 13 days of traditional Hindu mourning. But then, on the 14th day, right as they're finally packing up to leave, this horrific omen happens. Rohit's father is backing up his car on the narrow dirt path and accidentally crushes a cat. His mother, who is already deeply grieving, begs him not to travel on such an incredibly inauspicious note. So Rohit's, his parents, his sister, his grandmother, and a cousin are all forced to stay behind for just one extra night. So picture this. The family is trying to sleep on the second floor of this massive, dead quiet house. It's the middle of the night, pitch black, and Rohit's parents are lying awake. Suddenly, directly above them on the roof, they hear it. The unmistakable, heavy sound of horse hooves pacing back and forth. And mixed in with that, the sharp, rhythmic jingling of a woman's bangles. While they're lying there, completely paralyzed by the noise upstairs, a deafening banging suddenly rattles the heavy wooden door downstairs, like someone is violently demanding to be let in. The father, wanting to protect his family, goes down to the main gate. He throws open the door, and there is absolutely nothing, just empty, pitch-black darkness. His mother is watching from the hall, and she just immediately bursts into hysterical tears. But then, the father notices something glinting on the doorframe. He picks it up, brings it inside to show his mom, and it's a gold earring. Now let me explain the sheer panic that erupts here. According to their tradition, a widow places her jewelry into her dead husband's mouth before cremation. Get this, that earring was the exact piece of gold the grandmother had just placed inside her dead husband's mouth during his funeral, and now it's sitting on their front doorstep. She literally screams at him to throw it away. The father assures her he'll get rid of it. But in his panic to check the front door, he actually made a fatal mistake. He left the upstairs terrace door unlocked. When he gets back to his bedroom, his wife is clutching young Rohit, completely drenched in a cold sweat. She whispers to him that while he was gone, the terrace door opened. This unseen heavy presence came right into their room, stood directly over her bed, and whispered her name, Shanti. Then, at 3:30 a.m., the true horror strikes. Rohit's older cousin is sleeping downstairs near the grandmother, and she hears this gruesome sound coming from the older woman's room. It sounded like something biting down with massive teeth. The cousin bravely creeps over to the doorway, but she doesn't see a person. Instead, she sees this massive, dark shadow physically choking the grandmother. The cousin is frozen, like totally paralyzed by sheer terror. She can't move a single muscle or even cry out for help until 5 a.m. And by the time the rest of the family rushes down, it's too late. The grandmother is dead. As you can imagine, the family is frantic. They call in a local priest to do a quick clearing of the house. But the father is so stressed, he tragically forgets to even mention that cursed gold earring he found. Desperate to just get out of there, they pack into the car and speed toward the highway. But the second they hit the Tagaria Forest Road, their car suffers this bizarre crash involving a pair of pliers left on the road. The car is completely disabled. So they have no choice. The terrified family is forced to walk right back to the haunted house. The next day, they bring in an even more senior priest. But as he's walking through the house, he suddenly just freezes. His voice drops, his whole demeanor changes, and he becomes entirely possessed, delivering that chilling warning we talked about at the very beginning. When he finally snaps out of it, he is absolutely panicked. He tells them the house has entered Panchuka. That's a highly inauspicious 5-day period where dark entities are at their absolute strongest. Terrified for his own life, the senior priest literally packs his bags and runs away. At this point, the tension is at a boiling point. The father gets into a huge argument with his brothers over who should bear the burden of fixing this nightmare. Upset and overwhelmed, he actually leaves the house with his brothers to go get a drink and cool off, which means Shanti, Rohit, and his sister are left completely alone in that second-floor bedroom. And then the sounds start again. Very faint footsteps on the terrace above, and that sharp, unmistakable sound of jingling bangles right outside their second-story window. Imagine being trapped in that room. The mom and the kids are crouching on the bed, basically holding their breath. Then, knock, knock, knock on their bedroom door. A voice calls out from the dark hallway. "Shanti, open the door. Will you keep me standing outside?" Guys, it was the exact voice, the precise inflection of Rohit's recently deceased grandmother. Shanti, running on pure survival instinct here, rigidly orders her kids not to make a single sound. Don't respond. The knocking grows super violent, but then it finally stops. Exactly 15 minutes after it gets quiet, Shanti's phone rings. It's Rohit's uncle, and he is hysterical. He tells her that Rohit's father, the rational Navy veteran who refused to believe in the old ways, had just mysteriously drowned in the nearby river. Following the father's tragic death, the devastated family brings in a highly accomplished exorcist. And he finally reveals the jaw-dropping truth behind this 85-year-old ritual. It turns out the great-great-great-grandfather hadn't just made up some quirky tradition. No, he had made a dark, binding pact with a Brahma Rakshasa. That's a terrifying demonic spirit of a corrupted scholar. The ancestors actually appointed this demon as the supernatural head of their family. And here is the truly horrifying reality of the whole thing. The Brahma Rakshasa provided the family with immense wealth and influence, but the price? Unimaginably dark. The 17-year ritual was not some blessing for the pregnant wife. It was a scheduled sacrifice. During the temple puja, the entity would literally consume the life of the 6-month unborn child. The grandmother knew this awful truth, and she was murdered by the entity because she failed to warn her stubborn son about what would happen if he broke that demonic contract. So to finally end the immediate slaughter, Shanti and young Rohit actually had to sit down and perform a terrifying appeasement ritual just to calm the demon down. Shortly after that, a powerful exorcist was brought in to bind the house and the entire 31 Biga forest using ancient mantras. Today, Rohit says his family is physically safe from the Brahma Rakshasa, but the entity, it's still trapped right there in the woods, occasionally making its terrifying presence felt in the dark. We've just watched a modern man of science collide with a literal demon of the past, and it resulted in absolute tragedy. So, as we let the embers of this dark story fade out, I want to leave you with one final thought. If you were staring into the face of a curse that demanded the ultimate sacrifice to ensure your family's wealth, if it was your family, what would you do to survive?